Hello, welcome back to Talking Europe on France 24. I'm Catherine Nicholson. Now, whether it's for the fresh air and exhilarating outdoor pursuits or the hot chocolate, fondue and après-ski fun, Europe's Alps are one of the continent's most popular holiday destinations, or they used to be. The region boasts more than a third of the world's ski resorts, and normally a winter season in the Alps generates about 28 billion euros in revenue. But major operators say that bookings this year are dramatically down amid the pandemic. Now, not all of Europe's Alpine countries are taking the same path as each other, despite calls for European coordination on the coronavirus response. And this has been the cause for some argument. France, for example, banning the use of ski lifts, effectively putting most resorts out of action, while in Austria, many resorts are fully functional. So what's the right way to go on this? Is public health at risk, and will the thousands of businesses reliant on winter sports survive? Here with us today to give us their point of view, two members of the European Parliament from the two EU states with the most winter sport areas. From Austria's governing Austrian People's Party, Barbara Thaler, who's in Innsbruck. Hello there.
Hello.
And from President Emmanuel Macron's Renew Europe group at the European Parliament, French MEP Dominique Riquet. Hello there.
Hello.
Well, thanks both for being with us. I'd like to first get an idea of what's happening or not out on the slopes. This report is by our Austria correspondent Vianney-Lorrain with Anthony Mills.
100 kilometres from the capital, the Semmering resort is a favourite of the Viennese. On the slopes this weekend, more than 1,500 skiers. But no foreign tourists because hotels and restaurants are closed. For these skiers, it's a day trip.
We've been in lockdown for a very long time with no sport. Here we're in the fresh air, we're recuperating, we're relaxing. We Austrians are a skiing nation. It's important for us to be able to ski in these times.
To avoid infection, the government has imposed certain strict rules, like wearing an FFP2 mask, if you're older than 14, in the ski lift cabins, reassuring the skiers.
I feel safe. We are outside and there's fewer people on the slopes. I don't think this will suddenly lead to clusters because there are appropriate measures and most people respect them.
An emphatic opening by the government to support a sector badly hit by the crisis. It won't, though, make up for all the losses.
We're happy to have been able to open, and we're trying to make the best out of the season. But we're operating at limited capacity, 2,500 visitors instead of 4,000. It also represents more efforts and additional costs. I hope the measures will be lifted so we can operate at normal capacity again.
A hope shared by other resorts. Some have even decided to stay closed until the tourists return. The stakes are high for Austria, where the ski sector is worth 11 billion euros and creates, directly or indirectly, 125,000 jobs.
There we go, the situation at one Austrian ski resort. So, Dominique Riquet, I'd like to come to you first. We've seen that Austrian ski resort taking precautions, mandatory FFP2 masks in the ski lifts, fewer people than normal. How big a risk, really, is there?
Well, I think that first I want to express one thing, that it's a pity that we have not a European coordination, because it will be not good at all for the result, the final result. The position of the different countries are a very different one. But I want to underline that it's probably a geographical position, a different position for Austria, for example, with mountain countries, and for example, Italy and France. And what I want to underline is that it's no problem with the winter sport itself, but if you open the ski lift, you have the risk to have a crowdy people, and so you are not in the respect of the pandemic precaution. I want just finally add something in whole Europe. We have always made the choice of the protection of the human health and not the economy. We want to protect economy, but not beyond the human health. And so if you don't have precaution about that, could be very difficult. And I remember that at the previous season of winter sport, we have a lot of problem coming from Austria, for example, about that. And it was the beginning, for example, of a lot of cluster in all of Europe with that. And we remain on the same position. We think that winter sport is a healthy practice, is sure, but the crowdy people in the station are not healthy at all.
All right, so let's come to Barbara Thaler then. Dominique Riquet bringing up the fact that there was this case, the Ischgl resort in Austria, identified as a COVID-19 super spreader cluster, really, in March. Cases in 45 countries eventually were linked back to people who'd gone and done winter sports at Ischgl. Is Austria putting economy above human health?
Yes, hello, and thank you for putting this question to me. But let me start with the most important point, I think, which is that public health has to be the main priority during a global pandemic. And speaking about the ski resource, I think that the last weeks in Austria proved that skiing is possible because of our really strict and detailed security plans, as we saw in the video before. We are having the distance rules. Of course, we are having reduced capacities in the gondolas, and as the lady in the video said, we are all mandatory to wear a FFP2 mask. So skiing was a good thing for the people, and I think we proved that it is possible. And I want to highlight that this was not an economic decision. It was not a question of attracting tourism. It was a decision for the people living in the regions around the ski areas. And with the distance rules and the strict security plan, it worked. It's about responsibility.
Just to come back to you, Barbara Thaler, there is a problem with COVID-19, isn't there, that people can get infected and then they don't know until about a week later. Switzerland kept its ski resorts open during the holidays. It's just announced new lockdown measures after infections went up. It's not necessarily possible to know if those restrictions are working, is it, in the Austrian ski resorts?
No, our figures show that last weeks and that the reopening of the ski resorts with the strict security plans worked. Many of the peoples appreciated the fact that they can spend time skiing with their families, respecting the rules, of course.
Dominique Riquet, you said when we spoke to you the first time that you're upset or sad that there's been no coordination among the member states of the EU on this. But an Austrian might well ask, why should it matter to France if Austria reopens? Barbara Thaler, as we've heard, obviously very convinced that the health and safety measures are working.
Yeah, but it's not at all a problem of ski practice, you know. When you are skiing, it's not a problem. And I think that we have the possibility to have effective control about ski lift and so on. But when we are, and everybody knows that, when we are in the station, it's not the problem of the ski. It's a problem of the crowdy meeting of people for feast, bar, restaurant at all. And if you close that, if you close the restaurant and hotel, it's just for the resident. It's not at all a concern of tourism. Is something else. We are not speaking about the health of the population, of the resident population. We are talking about tourism, economic, crowded people in the station, and after the spread of the pandemic. And I think it's a joke to say if you live in Innsbruck or Kitzbühel, you can have the access to the ski lift, but if you come from another country, it's quite impossible because you have no hotel, no restaurant, and no bar. I think it's a little bit hypocrite. I think you have to close it and not to say ski is good for us. Yes, ski is good for us. I agree with that. But the virus is not good at all.
So Barbara Thaler, just coming back to you on this question of European coordination. France, we know, is a country that's really been pushing for coordination on all aspects of the pandemic. Austria is a country that's gone its own way a couple of times, getting a rebate, for example, on the EU budget after signing up reluctantly to the pandemic recovery response. The tourism minister snapped it to the French president that she wouldn't tell him when to open the Louvre, for example. coordination does seem to be lacking here, and many say this is damaging to the European Union in a bigger way.
Yes, more coordination from EU side would have been and still is necessary. I fully agree on that. During the first weeks and months of the pandemic, the people in my constituency very often asked me, Barbara, how is the EU helping? What are the advantages now? And I admit that this was tough to answer sometimes back then in spring. But to be honest, more coordination should have been required in terms of keeping the borders open, the internal market going, and also in the terms of consistent traveling rules. So yes, a loud and clear yes from my side to more coordination, but a common decision to open ski resorts or not, it misses the point in my opinion, because this is a question of subsidiarity, because there is no one size fits all solution. Every ski resort is different, and I think we should give this to the regional or national level to decide.
So not necessarily EU coordination on every single point. All right, thank you so much, Barbara Thaler, speaking to us, the Austrian MEP in Innsbruck. We've also been speaking to Dominique Riquet. Thank you for your time as well, a French MEP who's in Brussels. And thanks to you, our viewers, for watching as well. Hope to see you soon.